All right, let's flip the script, man. Let's go in the trenches. It's ugly in there, dude. It is ugly in there. We got 4 more names in there. I'll start this one off with Jadeveon Clowney. He's not signed right now. I was just looking at his entirety of his career and the situations he's been in. He's made the postseason 4 out of the 6 seasons he's been in the league. And he's good, man. He's a good player. We all know that. Super talented, high pick. Yet 2 winning teams have moved on from him. Houston, they made 6 of the last 9 postseasons. Seattle's made 7 of the last 8. Last year, he only had 3 sacks and 7 tackles for a loss, both the fewest since his rookie year. He had 13 QB hits, the fewest since his second season. We all know he's productive, man, but clearly he's not getting a deal in the price range he wants from a team he wants to hear from. As for the wear and tear and missing games, here, check this out in chronological order. He's missed games due to a sports hernia, concussion, torn meniscus, Liz Frank, elbow sprain, knee sprain, back sprain. He's only 27. But, man, that body has a lot of wear and tear for me. He wants to talk big game, and I think he has a big game, but it's just inconsistent for me, man. And I think some of these teams feel the same way. There's rumors about the Titans, the Raiders, the Jets being interested. They haven't had a winning foundation like the Texans and the Seahawks have had. That's what Clowney's been used to. The Titans, yeah, they just made the playoffs, but they've only made it twice in the past decade. The Raiders made it once the past 10 years. The Jets haven't made it since 2010. I think this guy needs to call Seattle and be like, yo, let me come back, please. He does not know how good he's had it. I think he's making a mistake. Maybe he doesn't want to play. I don't know, man. I'm not trying to jump into his head. But am I being too harsh on Clowney?
I don't think so. I mean, you made a good point. You know, those teams that you named, those are solid teams. You know, the Texans, the Seahawks, those are teams in the bubble of, you know, of they're in that time of winning championships. You know, they got the players, they got everything's in place for them to go and chase that. So for them to get rid of a player like Clowney is a little suspicious. You wonder what that could be if it is all the injuries. You know, I know there's a lot of players out there too with plenty of injuries who just are that good to where they get to stay on these teams. But so I'm not sure what the issue is with with Clowney. I mean, the times I have seen him play, he's a monster. But like you said, I did see some inconsistencies with him last year in games where Seattle really needed him to step up, and you know he disappeared. I think until like the fourth quarter. I do see your concerns in regards to Clowney.
Drew?
Not just a really good player. I think Clowney is one of the elite players that haven't been signed yet. I mean, like you said, he's missed some games, but he hasn't really missed a bunch of games in the last 5 years. I'm looking at he only missed 9 games. So 9 games in 5 years, maybe that does show a little bit of wear and tear, and that's a reason why there's kind of hidden talk, maybe some from some of these athletic doctors saying that they don't see that same explosiveness. That's why he only landed with those 13 quarterback hits and 7 sacks. But I mean, that's just a hard conversation they're going to have nowadays, just like the Gurley conversation. Someone could take a flyer, but it's more about the price. You know, when he first became on the free agent, he was talking about the money that he wanted. He got 0 calls, right? And then he kind of came out a few weeks later and said he'll lower it. You know, so I think he's understanding the market, and the closer that we are to the season, him not being on a team, I think he'll, well, at least I hope he gets the right kind of advice and lowers his number a little bit. I'd rather play for a team for a little bit less than what I would want. But, I mean, I'd rather make some money than no money, especially if there is already chatter about declining health. You got to take what you can right now. I mean, your resume will speak for itself. He's used to getting around 7 to 10 sacks every year. He's used to about 18 quarterback hits. So I mean, the resume's there. It's just maybe they're looking to do what smart GMs do right now in the future. They're going to pay you for what you're going to do and not what you've done.
Yeah, I think this is a really good example of a player with something to prove for a different reason. Because, like we said, we've talked a lot about guys who are in their contract years, and they're playing next year for a big contract. Well, this is different because he still doesn't have a contract, and he's thinking like, "Hey, man, like, damn, this is disrespect." Like I don't know, I might come out and have a big year next year, but I think there's a lot of. I agree with Drew. I do think he's an elite player. If you look at his Pro Football Focus rankings for the last 2 years, he's got 88 and 87, I think, the last 2 years. So when he plays, he's good, even though maybe last year the sack numbers didn't speak for themselves. But, if you watch enough football, you know that it's not all about sacks. Sometimes you get unlucky and you don't get those numbers, but the hurries or the QB hits are right there in line with what should be a 10-sack season, but it ends up going lower than that. So I think, maybe other teams around the league are looking at those sack numbers and saying, hey, I'm not paying $20 million a year for that guy. But I mean, as an Eagles fan, and Wes, this, Brandon Graham, he's one of the best DNs in the league, and he never has those super high sack numbers, but we all know that he's still a beast and he wrecks havoc, so there's a lot to that. I think another thing that kind of goes against him is he kind of has that attitude where you don't know if you're going to get the best out of him every week. And I think that kind of rubs off negatively on teams he's been with, because it's, he's definitely not that guy where what you're going to get every week as far as effort and, things like that. Because, being a number one pick and being that talented, you kind of walk in and he doesn't have that, same mindset you'd kind of hope for in a number one pick. So I think that's kind of hurt him a little bit. And then like we said, he's been nicked up a little bit here and there. So I just think if you're going to pay, top dollar for someone and they have questions about their attitude, I think that's the biggest thing that's holding him back, even though I think when he's on the field, he's shown that he can be a beast. So it'll be interesting to see how far he comes down and who he ends up landing with before the season.
So you're a GM right now, Paul, and you're a playoff contender, and you have 20 mil, and that's what Clowney wants. You pull the trigger?
I'm not giving him 20 mil, but if I give him, I would sign him because, at this point, he knows he's not going to get 20 mil because that's kind of where he started at. And, now he's going to have to come down. But I'm definitely not giving him a multi-year deal. But if I'm a playoff contender, I'm 100% going to give him a 1-year deal at least, for sure, just because I know that, hey, it's not going to tie me up cap-wise long-term, because if you're a playoff team, you probably got other, big cap numbers on your books. So, and giving a large contract, multi-year contract to someone who, maybe has some of those attitude concerns and just playing hard all the time. But I mean, to add him to a rotation, a DN rotation on a 1-year deal where you're not, sacrificing your cap longer down the road and you're able to pull it off this year and you're a playoff team, then I'm 100% on board.
Understood. All right. Let's keep it in the trenches. And I think this was you, Vargy. Did you bring up Leonard Williams here?
I did bring up Leonard Williams. I think in the same vein where we were talking about Clowney, kind of what Paul was mentioning. I think Leonard has a lot to prove because, like Clowney, he's a disruptor. He may not have the numbers, he may not have gotten the numbers last year that he's, would be expected of him, but I mean, he's a disruptor. At the end of last year, I mean, for New York, he pretty much caught on. And it was a little too late for them, and they weren't really in the playoff hunt. So, maybe they weren't pushing as hard. But I think he has a lot to prove this year, especially with his contract situation as well. I know that the Giants have a lot of reasons for not signing him to a contract so early. And it has to do, obviously, with the conditional they have a conditional pick. I believe that if they were to sign him this year, that conditional pick would go from a 5th-round pick to a 4th-round pick. So they were like, so they think there's a lot of reasons as to why, he has a lot to prove. Not only but to himself. I mean, the guy is a first-round pick. He was 2015 out of USC. I mean, the guy was a beast. And that's what was expected of him,
What's up with these USC guys?
I knew you were going to say
all right.
that. Hey, man, sanctions, man. Those sanctions hit hard, bro.
It's Pete's fault.
It is.
Man,
But yeah, man. So like I said, he's an interesting situation for me. I think what I've seen from him, I like him as a player. I think, like I said, he's a disruptor. I would add him to my team any day. Obviously he's not playing to what his potential could be, and I think that's what's hurting him right now. He's not playing up to his contract. If he's going to ask for 17 million, he's not going to get that from a lot of people, especially the way he's playing right now. So I think this year is going to be huge for him. I think this is a year for him to really prove to everybody, why he was a first-round pick, and get his money.
that's cool, man. He was a first rounder. They expect big things. Change of scenery could help a lot of guys. I'm on the other side of the fence here. He's on the franchise tag, like you said. And I know he was with the Jets, now on the Giants, and so things change. But his production on the field, he was ranked 51st out of all defensive interior linemen. It's not so hot right there. Last year was his fewest tackles and sacks, where he only had half a sack. Hopefully that's just on the field. The new staff.
That's cool, man. That's cool.
Damn, dude. But
he's
the new
300 pounds, right?
Lance Armstrong.
Tell my friend Lance.
Oh, man. The new staff, it's a first-time defense coordinator in Patrick Graham, last with the Packers and Dolphins last year. He was actually the Giants D-line coach before. 2017 wasn't really notable, but 2016 is something I was looking at here with Leonard Williams. The Giants were the top third in turnovers that year, and they were up there, and they had the 5th fewest first downs allowed, the 2nd fewest passing touchdowns allowed, the 5th fewest rushing touchdowns. So they did pretty well that year with Patrick Graham. I had to look into him a little bit. Didn't really know on the surface, but it is a young defense coordinator with a young defense, and Leonard Williams still a young player. So how that 2016 season relates to Williams today, the starting D linemen that year notched 21 sacks, and the D tackles, they got 5.5 sacks between them, the two starters. So he's going to line up in a 3-4 defense now. Again, but the Giants weren't in the 3-4 last year. They're switching, so that caters to his strengths, which helps him out there, Vargy. It's another USC guy to me. I mean, I don't want it to be that way. Drew, Leonard Williams, what do you think?
Yeah, the franchise tag speaks for itself. Drafted so high, he's just pure inconsistency. You talk about his best season in 2016. I mean, he started with 3 his rookie year, then it went to 7, but then it went down to 2, then 5, and then half last year. Same thing with his tackles for loss, especially as an interior lineman. You want him to get that defensive pressure or at least disrupt runners in the backfield. He went from 7 to 11 to 3 to 11 to 2. So there's just a lot of inconsistencies there. That's why you come out with a franchise tag. One of the funny comparisons about the franchise tag, I was listening to Colin Cowherd the other day, and he said the franchise tag is like the engagement ring.
Yep.
It's like, this is how close I'm going to get to the marriage, but it's still another test for about a year. until winning it. So I think that's what a lot of these teams are doing. I thought it was a pretty funny way to put it, but I mean, it's pretty spot on. It's the engagement ring, so they're not really sure. That's a great candidate for a player with a lot to prove because it's a lot of things. You're a high pick. You've been inconsistent. You've already been franchise tagged. And a lot of teams don't franchise you for the second time unless you actually explode. So him exploding, I think there's just too many inconsistencies there, especially if the Giants are looking to be on the field on defense a lot next year.
Yeah, I agree pretty much all the way on this one. He's, like you guys have all said, he's been inconsistent. I'm surprised. I was surprised the Giants gave up. I think they gave up a third and a fifth for him, which surprised me a little bit. Because last year was probably his worst year as a professional, and that's that's the year he's supposed to be, taking off and making improvements. I think last year Pro Football Focus had him rated a 70, which is, maybe a little, solid, but nothing spectacular. And then years prior, you're looking at, he's always hovering around the mid 70s. So he's never really kind of had that breakout year. And honestly, I wouldn't even franchise him because I think $16 million for that guy is insane. And especially when you're looking at a team like the Giants who have so many other needs, to lock up $16 million in just a solid, unspectacular defensive lineman, I just think that's crazy. But obviously, when you're kind of pot committed at that point, when you're giving up a third and a fifth for a guy, so I think that's more of the reason why they franchise tagged him versus anything, because they're like, hey, well, let's overpay him and hope that he has a big year, and versus just letting him go for nothing. But I just feel like putting in $16 million for a guy who's probably worth maybe half that, if that, is just crazy to me. And maybe that's why the Giants are where they are right now, because they just they're not making good decisions on a whole. So yeah, I mean, definitely a prove it year for him. He wants to prove like, hey, I want to get a big contract, or hey, I'm worth the money you're paying me. But yeah, I just don't see it.
Well, damn, don't stop there, Paul. Tell us, keep it going, Paul. We're going to talk about Trent Williams now, man. That's your choice here. He goes from the NFC's worst team to the NFC's best team based on 2019. Trent Williams, he's 32. Why is he on your list?
Well, first of all, the crazy thing is he's only 32. You feel like he's been around forever. And so I feel like he's still got a lot of good years left in him. And just right off the bat, I just feel like he's a good candidate because he didn't play last year. And, he had his reasons. He felt like the Redskins organization did him wrong, and they didn't, respect him and treat him well enough through his medical issues that he had. And he felt like, they weren't being truthful and they were hiding things. And, there's just a lot of drama going on there, and he just decided, not to play the whole year. So, good for him. He stuck by his guns, and he finally got out of there. I don't think it was about money. He just, wanted to be treated right, so good for him. But I mean, now he's got a great opportunity. He gets traded on draft day, and now, he's going to be on a 1-year deal with, one of the best teams in the league. And he's going to fill a need because, Joe Staley just retired. So, they needed a tackle, and now, he can step in and be on, like I said, be on one of the best teams, a team that likes to run the ball. So he's going to have a great opportunity, I think, to kind of reset his market value going into this year, because he's going to be a free agent after next year. And I think, since he's still only 32, and if he has a good year, I think he's still in line for another big payday. And let's not forget, we're back from 2016, 2018, we're talking about one of the best tackles in the league. From that time span of 2016 to 2018, he was ranked the third best tackle by Pro Football Focus during that time. So, I think people kind of forget just how much of a stud he was. And, we, as an Eagles fan, you faced him twice a year. And, I was like, not much getting by on that side of the line. So
rock steady, man.
Yeah. So I feel like I feel like he's going to have a big chip on his shoulder because I think people are maybe forgetting how good he was, and just kind of after a year off, they're kind of writing him off a little bit. So I feel like he's going to have a lot to prove this year, and I think he's going to come out and have a big year.
Yeah, man, maybe the non-San Francisco 49er fans are forgetting. I actually just saw ESPN. They had like a panel ranking players, and when it came to left tackle, they ranked Trent Williams between second best and sixth best. He was never below that. So they didn't forget. That's pretty impressive. I'm with you. I still think he's elite. To me, he's kind of a mirror image of Jason Peters. That was one of his biggest influences. Trent Williams will tell you that, in a sense of production and being that cornerstone left tackle, but also he's missed games in 7 of 9 seasons, and he didn't play in year 10 last year. Elite, expect him to miss a game or 2 or 3. And he's 32, and maybe that rest last season, maybe it was good for him and his body. Maybe he comes back strong. I expect that. Of course, there is a chance that he comes back maybe a little bit different, maybe rusty, and maybe he shakes that off. That's what I think will happen. Sounds like you'll think that'll happen too. What do you guys think on Trent Williams in the Bay?
Beast, man. I mean, the great thing is coming off of a year, it could be 2 things, especially with the team that he's going to. Like Paul mentioned, it's a year off. You know, it's a time where he can reflect and get his body right, especially for being a lineman at that weight. I mean, you know, you're talking about 6'5", 320 pounds, but he's one of the most athletic tackles that there is. Not to mention, you could ask any old lineman out there, probably 90% of them will tell you, we love run blocking. So they're going to be running the ball a lot on the Niners. So it's not like he's going to be the only one anchoring that offense either. There's going to be a lot of zone. It's a lot easier to block on right off the point of attack. They do a lot of team blocking. So you're moving on your feet, but for a 6'5", 320 guy, he's quick on his feet. That was one of the things that he was also credited for as apart from being an elite pass blocker. He was also a great run blocker that can get out to the edges and block the outside linebackers. So I think San Francisco was a great fit. I think he's going to come back also an elite player. You talked about Jason Peters. Yeah, Jason Peters misses games, but he's still on the team. It's not like they're letting him go. That's a lot of value behind the scenes there. If the team's going to go out and shell out money for a player like that, it's because they know that when they're on the field, they're going to get elite talent, and there's nobody that can really surpass that for that kind of money, especially, you know, if you're on the Niners and you're looking to win that Super Bowl in the next 2 to 3 years before, you know, a lot of their contracts come up. And why is it always the Niners, man? Like, we're getting stuck in this division, man. It looks like the Cardinals are getting better with D-Hop. Jamal Adams just went to the Seahawks. Freaking Trent Williams goes to the Niners, and then they get a first-round pick to the Colts for letting Buckner go. And now they have one of the next Clowney positions in the draft. Like, come on, man. What's going on over here? What are the Rams doing?
Damn, that's true, huh?
Man.
Jeez.
We just like to pay big money for players that are going to be on other teams. No big deal.
I think he's in the best possible position. I mean, for the people who don't watch, the game, every Sunday, or people who are just don't remember Williams. I mean, like these guys said, that guy's a monster, and he's one of the top linemen at his position. And being with the Niners, I mean, that's just a plug and play. Like you mentioned, their stuff is a lot easier to learn, the way they run their plays. Plus, they have a defense, so he's not going to have to be out on the field, that much, I think it's a great fit for both of them.
Nice. And then something I came across, I don't know why these guys just don't put their name on it, so that's kind of weak. But since there's news on Trent Williams anyway, I'll share it. Some AFC exec actually mentioned that he thought Trent Williams would actually have to improve his backside run blocking. that his words, he thought he was a little lazy on that, and he doesn't always finish plays when he's on the backside of a play. And saying how Kyle Shanahan is very detail-oriented, and that's a big deal, a backside block, and that Shanahan and that offense will be adamant on it. So I thought that was an interesting comment to make. I just wish that guy put his name on it. It's kind of not fair when you don't put your name on it. Come on. But yeah,
you don't really cover too many backside blocks as a tackle, anyways. I mean, you're stretching to the edge. So I mean, I think he was smart to not put his name on there.
Hey Drew, give us the word on Myles Garrett, man.
Oh my gosh, Mr. Myles, man. To me, Myles Garrett is one of the best players in the NFL, man. I mean, for me, when you're looking at elite players, you got to pass two things. First, you got to pass the eye test, and then on the other side, you got to be flirting with top 10 status as far as stats and the talent around you. So, I mean, if, I always talk about getting blessed with the opportunity to have, NFL Game Pass that has coaches film. So, when we had that movement, and I know we kind of briefly talked about, I want to watch every game in 2019 and kind of just see it as an objective point of view. Obviously, I don't have the experience that some others do, but, I mean, when it's talent like that, it just pops off the screen. And as far as the tape shows, if you've been watching the Cleveland Browns circus the past couple of years, he's one of the positive sides of the Browns right now. He's a guy that pops off the screen. You're talking about pure talent, penetrating offensive lines, disrupting backfields, pressuring quarterbacks, and then eventually coming out of the pocket with sacks. I mean, Myles Garrett's definitely making a name for himself in the NFL. As far as physical attributes, in 2017, he was the first overall pick. I mean, this guy was just a physical phenomenon. He ran a 4.6 40, which is outside linebacker speed. So he's definitely versatile. They just don't use him in that position because he dominates so much on the right defensive end position. He had a 41-inch vertical. I mean, you talk about explosiveness. Like, those DBs don't even get up to 41 inches. 33 reps on the bench. 33 reps is a nose tackle number on average in the NFL. So the guy has it all. I mean, for him being not the biggest guy in the field, he's about 6'4", runs around 264 right now. I mean, that's impressive. He's one of the freak athletes to come out of Texas A&M. The only knock on him during the draft day was all of them talking about his 100% effort. I know we talked about that with Clowney too. But, I mean, at the end of the day, if you have the stats like Garrett has, I don't really care what you do on the field, off the field. As long as you're not getting in any, litigations or subpoenas, I mean, you're going to do what you're going to do, whether you're 60, 70, 80, 90% off the field. If you're flirting with top 10 numbers, you're an elite player. I can't really say much about that. As far as his rookie year, Myles Garrett in the past, he's done nothing but perform. So he's only started 9 out of the 11 games as a rookie year. He had 7 sacks. Obviously didn't play that many games, didn't start as many games, but on a per-game average, he was set to be 15. So top 15 in sacks, top 11 in tackles for losses, and number 6 in quarterback hits. As far as his full season, his only full season that he's played was in 2018. He had 13.5 sacks, which was tied for 6th, 12 tackles for losses, which is in the top 10 category, and also 29 quarterback hits. That was about 5th in the league also. Pressuring the quarterback, he's not just good disrupting runners, he's also pressuring quarterbacks in the backfield. So as far as hurries, he was in the top 10. Pressures on quarterbacks, he was 6th. And then looking back to the most recent season, again on a 10-game average, just because he obviously with the suspension missed the last 6 games, but he was on pace with his 10 sacks to be 3rd. He was on pace with his 11 tackles for losses to be 4th. Same thing with his quarterback hits. He was on pace for 6th, hurries 10th, and pressures 7th. So the guy just does nothing but produce. And I get it. I understand a lot of people will still have a bad taste in their mouth from the last time they saw Myles Garrett on the football field, using a helmet completely opposite from its sole purpose. I understand that. But you can agree or disagree with me. But, I mean, as far as second chances, you can't tell me that there isn't something in your life that you've acted foolishly upon too, and you're thinking now that you want to take back. So, I mean, unless the kid's 23. He was 23 years old. He'll probably be 24 coming into this league. I did some pretty stupid stuff when I was 23, regrettable things. The biggest thing is he came out and apologized for them. He owned it. He knew he did the right thing. Obviously, it was on national television, so everybody saw it. Even people that aren't diehard football fans saw what he did. So that's kind of like their lasting memory. But, I mean, a lot of good humans on this earth will have nothing but nice things to say about that guy. Same thing with us. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that we've done in the past that we regret. But if I ask the majority of the humans around our circle, they got nothing but good things to say about us too. So, I mean, the guy was still voted as one of the captains on his team this year too. So, I mean, out of all the grown men on his team, that's a players and coaches vote. So, yeah, he didn't, he probably had one of the most regrettable times or one of the most regrettable decisions and actions in the NFL. But he's a complete stud, man, and I expect him to continue to take the league by storm. Honestly, I see him as the next J.J. Watt, or like we talked about, Clowney. He's one of those clones out there, man. He's here to stay.
Paul?
Yeah, I mean, you would think if it wasn't for the incident last year, he probably wouldn't even be discussed on this list as a guy who, was for stuff to prove, because he's, like Drew said, he's been so damn productive already, and he's a complete monster. There's a reason he was picked number 1 in the draft. His measurables, his everything is just, he's off the charts athletically, everything. So yeah, I mean, Drew covered all the good stuff. So I mean, the only thing else I'd say on this, hey, I think the fact that he got his money, his 5-year, $125 million extension, I think that shows, to Drew's point, that I think he's looked at in the locker room and around the league as a good guy and a beast. And they locked him up, even though the last memory of him was the suspension. So I think that says a lot about who he is as a player and a person. So I think that the Browns did a good thing. They showed a lot of confidence in him that, that was just a one-off incident, which I agree. I think it was just a one-off thing. So I think, he's going to have that mindset like, hey, I want to prove to the Browns that they made the right decision, and also prove to the rest of the league that, hey, like, I'm not going anywhere, So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to be a staple in the NFL for a long time. The thing that happened, I mean, like Drew said, especially when you're playing the game of football, sometimes you do things that you're not really thinking with your head, and I think that was one of those incidents. I follow the guy on Instagram. I see that he does a lot of community work. He does a lot of stuff around Cleveland. So I mean, not to discredit what happened, but I mean, when you're talented, a lot of people forget that stuff. So that's when you're that talented, it's easy for people to forget your errors. So thankfully for him, he went about it the right way. He apologized and he did what he was supposed to. And that's why I think it's easier for people to kind of look at him and say, hey, you know what, let's give this guy another chance, another shot. And I mean, as a player, we all know what kind of player he is. He's shown us on the field, and I think, like I said, he's going to be one of those players who's going to be a staple in the NFL for time to come.
Awesome. And then, most guaranteed money for a defensive player up to this point in time. That speaks volumes, as all three of you had stated. He's entering year 3, Drew. Like you said, man, this guy's had double-digit sacks and tackle for a loss. Double digits in both the past 2 seasons. That's monstrous. He plays the run and as good as the pass. And I looked up something. I wasn't looking for this, but it came about when just digging through the stats, man. He's improved his missed tackle percentage from 12% missed tackle rate down to 3.
Wow.
3. And here's how impressive that is, because I'm like, that sounds really good. Let me look at some other guys, and you guys happen to mention them a little bit earlier. J.J. Watt, Joey Bosa, DeMarcus Lawrence, and Jadeveon Clowney, 11% missed tackle rate. T.J. Watt, 12%. Brandon Graham, 19%. So he's slipping a bit there. But damn, dude,
I'll
Myles
play it against the
Garrett.
Cowboys.
Yeah. DeMarcus Lawrence ain't so pretty either, but yeah, man, he upped his game up into a monster. So just to piggyback off of you guys, that was just it wasn't a new stat to me, but it was something where I'm like, he improved from 12% to 3%. That looks pretty drastic. That's why I looked at these other guys for comparisons, and he just blew him out the water, man. Just blew him.
Wow.
And even if last year he played too good of a level and he comes back to the norm, he's at the same level as they were already.
Right.
Crazy, man. So
Just above everybody else.
he's pretty damn good. All right, that'll cap things off for our 12 players with something to prove next season. We went over 4 quarterbacks, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, a left tackle, and 3 D linemen. We kind of went versatile there. I like it. I think y'all brought it. You brought a lot of facts, a lot of good viewpoints, both, where we agreed on a lot of things and we're able to see each other's perception on some things. I like how we shed a light on all these players. It was kind of fascinating for me, not only to share my information, but to retain what you guys were bringing to the table too. That was pretty good stuff right there.